Okay, we're back up here at the cemetery to get part 2 underway. It's been a couple of days now. Mom's grave is over there. You can't see the flagpole, but it's right over in there. So today we're going to go up this north flank, up the hill to the west. Looking back towards the car here, it's a really nice day out here. We got some really nice contrails, as you can see. It's in the morning. Just got off work. It's about 9 in the morning, and there's the jet contrails sailing north to south. They're sure showing up pretty good. Okay, we're about to the middle of the cemetery now. There is a flagpole right in the center. This is the top of the driveway. And this it's going to be the oldest section of the cemetery, and we'll come back to that later. And there's also a building right in the middle of the cemetery, and we'll come back to that later on as well. But for now, we're going to go down this now walking path. It used to be a roadway, but as you can see, it's very, very narrow. They blocked off many of the former roadways because they were just too narrow. And that's going to be Greg Brazil. Greg was several years younger than me. I was born in 1960. He's born on October 26th of 1964. So he was several grades below me. I delivered newspapers to his house. This is his father's grave. Born in 39, died in 06. I remember his father came up here a lot and spent time at Greg's grave. EM3, U.S. Navy. He joined the Navy and was stationed down in Florida, and apparently had finished his basic training and was involved in a motorcycle crash somewhere down in Florida and was killed on September 9th, 1983. So from here we're gonna take this road and we're gonna walk up this way. The next grave's gonna be about a quarter mile up the hill. Trudging along up the hill, I'm a lot of breath here. I mean, this isn't really horribly steep by any means, but it's a little hard on me being 58 years old and not used to being out walking. George McCune, 1907 to 1979. I was living here. I was 19 years old and still in high school when George passed away. George and his wife Esther owned and operated the Pioneer Village, which was a sort of a old-time western ghost town that is no longer here. I'm very sad to report that it was done away with after their death, and it's now, the property is now a retirement area and a retirement home. And I thought it was really sad that they did away with that, but they did for whatever reasons. The city of Jacksonville did. George McCune also had a role in a movie that was filmed here in Jacksonville, and we're going to talk more about that in a little bit. He drove the great big huge steam logging truck type thing through the town in the movie. But yeah, I knew George not really well, but he was quite an old guy. And then Esther, his wife, died in 2003, it looks like. It's hard to tell. It looks like she was also born in 1907. Long time ago. Alrighty, the road's getting just a little bit steeper now. But the good news is we come up here and we'll make a left, and we're going to go this way to the center of the cemetery, because there's only one other person that I know up in this area. And as I am making my way up here to the next grave, I run across one that I was unaware of that was here, that I do know. Don Wilson Went. Don Went was a longtime Jacksonville businessman. I didn't really know him. I think my dad did. He died in 2013. But Clara Went, she was a former mayor of Jacksonville, as you see right there. It says it right there. And she died, I heard she had died January 3rd, 2018. On January 3rd, I was laying in the hospital recovering from my hip replacement. She's born in 1927, a year before my dad. And I had heard that she had passed away, but I did not know where the gravesite was, and now I do. Right here. And there's a whole bunch of Wents. Whole big family plot. So now we're going on to the next grave, and we are in the Jewish section here. That's what this is. There's the Star of David over there, if you can see that. So the next grave is right beyond this American flag. And this is a very sad one. This is one that touches my heart very much. This is the grave of an 11-year-old girl that was brutally murdered in Ashland, Oregon, about 14 miles away from here. I remember it well. It was 1978, and I'm gonna have to look the date up. The gravestone is actually underneath all this stuff. Let's go ahead and it's right here. I'll go ahead and clear this off so we can take a look at it. Okay, it's really hard to see because it's in the shadows. I guess these are irises growing. Deanna Suzanne Jackman, born in August 1968. She died on December 28th, 1979. I thought it was 78, it's 79. So I was already out of high school, but I was living at home. And it was one night, on December 28th, I was sitting at home here in Jacksonville with Mom, watching TV, and at that time my dad was working the graveyard shift at a security job, so he wasn't home in the evenings. And I remember the live news report, breaking news, that two young 11-year-old girls had been found murdered at the stadium, the college, I guess it was a college football stadium there in Ashland, Oregon. And at that time they had a manhunt going on for the murderer was still loose, and that was very sad. Later reports would be he mistreated both those young girls horribly before and after the murder. It was just terrible, awful. Anyway, this is where Deanna Jackman lies. And this one's always been close to my heart because it's brutal. It's horrible when a child is murdered. I remember they planted this tree, and as you can see how much it's grown right over her grave. She apparently was Jewish. Very, very sad. From here, we can continue on to the end of the cemetery, which is not very far away. At the end of the cemetery, there's houses now beyond that. There never used to be. It used to be just wilderness back there, but now there's houses. So that's the end of the cemetery. And now we're over here on the southern part of the cemetery. You can now see the end of the cemetery a little clearer from here. A lot of very old graves here. And that's pretty much the boundary line there. It all goes back downhill to the Highway 238 now. Now you can really see the contrails, the jets flying from perhaps Los Angeles to Seattle. I don't know. Interesting. Love watching the jets. Okay, so now I've proceeded down about 25 or 30 feet from where I was at. And this is the location where a very small scene of the movie was filmed right here. Several years ago, I did a Then and Now series on the movie. It was called The Great Northfield, Minnesota Raid. And I tried to go back to all the filming locations here in Jacksonville and capture them. And one of the locations was right here. The horseman came down and then came around to this corner and then stopped right here. And in one of the scenes, we see R.G. Armstrong sitting on his horse, and he's sitting right there, right in the middle of that road. And if you look closely, you can tell by the grave markers in the trees that this is where that scene was filmed. Okay, so now we're going to go down the hill